In this video, I'll show you all the faces that we came up with from the Turin Shroud face, only by clearing the image and AI filling in the rest, such as background. This is actually based on the wedding at Cana, where Jesus turned water into wine. While this is playing, I'm going to go through some evidence why this is likely the face of Jesus. But first, we'll answer all the common objections from Christians and unbelievers. The disciples picked up Jesus' burial cloth, and it would have probably had this sort of image on it. But today, when we flip the colours, we see the image much more clearly, as though it was designed for our time. This is one way believed by many how the image could have transferred onto the cloth. Italian scientists worked out that it would take 1 billion kilowatts in a nanosecond to produce the same sort of colorization and superficial image. Before Jesus was resurrected, in John's Gospel, we're told that Jesus was wrapped in linen strips. And that's a common objection from Christians why the Shroud of Turin cannot be Jesus. However, in Matthew, Mark and Luke, it's said that Jesus was wrapped or sort of rolled up in a shroud. So which Gospel was right? In actual fact, all four are correct. Jesus was actually wrapped in a shroud, and then he was bound at the hands, feet and head with a linen strip. There is a strip cut off the left side of the Turin Shroud, and it was re-sewn on using what has been identified as a 1st century Masada stitch pattern. People see Jesus in their own nationality. So Africans see Jesus as a black man, and then Europeans see him as more European. But in actual fact, Jesus was a Jew, and computer models by a scientific paper says that the Turin Shroud is 85% Semitic and ancient Jew. The evidence that corresponds to this fact as well is limestone dirt has been found on the cloth coming from the specific area of Jerusalem, especially limestone tombs. It has the same signature. They've also found pollen, and most of the pollen comes from around that area in the Middle East, in Israel. The actual weave pattern of the shroud is an herringbone weave, and has been identified as coming from Egypt and Palestine, sometime between 300 BC and 200 AD. Scientists also recently used a new dating method to date the flax on the shroud, and they dated this between 700 BC and 300 AD, with the middle point being the 1st century. Although this dating method doesn't have 50 years of science to back it up just yet, it does look promising to be able to date the cloth to the 1st century. There's pollen around the head that has been found from a plant in Israel called Gundule tourniforte, and it is a thorny plant that was probably used for the crown of thorns on Jesus' head. but it looks like more like a cap of thorns on the Turin Shroud because his head is punctured all over. Here you can see how I used software to create the faces. This is what Jesus probably most likely looked like. If you don't have this image just as yet, I encourage you to go to my profile picture and click on the link and go to my Etsy shop called PHB Shop and have a browse and see what images you can download. You can download them high quality images, or we can send you a print. It's a bit more expensive for the print because we don't use our own printers, but it's worth it, especially if this is the authentic face of Christ. And also I encourage you, if you do have an high quality download of the image, to take it into a shop where there's a print machine and print this image out and frame it. Also show it your brothers and sisters and direct them to this video. If this is the face of Christ, it's of utmost importance that we get this shared and out there, so that we can not only just ask questions on it, but we can also find the answers to it. And it's very important for the world. If Christ has left this image for our time, so that we can see his glory and his miracle, the resurrection. Although one could argue that the image got on there by some other natural means, and that the resurrection story came out of that. But that's just a lifeline for the unbelievers. I just want to throw out there if they're afraid of this video. I've only actually skimmed the surface of the evidence. There's coins that have been minted in the 9th century with this face on it, and it has 120 correlations. That's enough to prove in a court of law.